Join us as we search Alaska and beyond for mysterious creatures, featuring Beans Baxter and Rob Roy Menzies. This is the Alaska Bigfoot Studies. Greetings all, it's your host Chuke here from the Alaska Bigfoot Studies, and really excited. We've almost been doing these weekly Sunday Bigfoot videos for a year and a half now. So shout out to Jomo and the kids, everybody who's tuning in every Sunday morning for your Bigfoot Chuke cartoon goodness. You can look at my playlist. If you go to my YouTube profile, there's a playlist section. You can just play hours and hours of Bigfoot goodness. But this week we want to just tell some Bigfoot stories. So I have some guests on here. We have the regulars, Rob and Beans. Can't wait to do more expeditions with them coming up here. Probably not till the spring. I may do a little piddling around during the winter, though. We'll see. You can get out a little bit. Then we have a new guy that's in town that we've recently connected with, so I'm going to feature him and throw a link up to all of their channels there. But when it comes to stories, I keep going back to Western Alaska. I think anywhere off the road system in Alaska, you're going to have a higher chance of running into some kind of mysterious creature, cryptid, that kind of thing. And these stories from Western Alaska are some of the best I have heard. Have a friend that grew up in Western Alaska, and they were saying that their whole family is aware of these Sasquatch creatures. And she was home one day when a relative came in and said, "It's back," and grabbed the rifle and ran out of the house. And then she asked him later what was it, and it was a Sasquatch. So that just blew my mind, just meeting somebody and having them tell you a story like that. But the stories that come from what was it, the Delta Observer, the Delta Discovery, happen to be the most interesting ones. And that is where I read about Bigfoot getting shot by a hunter, and then other Bigfoot chase that guy home. Bigfoot being very mean and ripping a dog in half. To me, that just sounds like such a visceral description. I had never heard of a dog being ripped in half. But the craziest story from that area has to do with Gabriel Fox. Now, you can actually Google that, and he is the boy that ran away. It lists his village and everything. He ran away. This was in the 60s, and the legend has it that he turned into a hairy man or a Sasquatch. Now, this is interesting because when Beans wrote his book, he had a similar kind of story. I remember reading his book when he went to Port Chatham. There were some legends, and there was something connected to that where people that had lived out in the woods so long, they kind of turned into hairy man. So the legend of Gabriel Fox, he ran away, turned into a Bigfoot, and this is where the story gets really odd. Supposedly the Army tracked him down, the U.S. military tracked him down, captured him, and took him away. So there's not too many details. He was a young boy living in an orphanage in a certain village. And so this is that was weird. This was in the Bethel area. And Bethel is a hub, so it's one of these small outlying villages. Ran away, and to survive, somehow he turned into a massive Sasquatch. Now, it's interesting that the locals say that the military took him away, and they also have knowledge of Bigfoot because before World War II, there was a pretty big military presence in rural Alaska, Western Alaska. I visited some of the armories. Now they're all abandoned because, probably 60% of the forces just moved out because the Air Force is so big now. We don't need to have, physical presence in all these areas. We've got radar and jets and things like that can take care of that. So there was some, I guess you could say, anger because there was a lot of jobs in those communities. So people have a little bit less trust for the military in some rural communities just because all those jobs left when those bases were abandoned. But there's these stories of hairy man, they're way out there, stationed in the middle of nowhere. A lot of sightings. I could see how a hairy man could be captured by military forces. And then, of course, they're not going to tell anybody about that. So it's a fascinating story, but let's check in with the other guys. Here's some Bigfoot stories, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. All right, I'm here with Daniel Becker from the Cryptid Wilderness Research Podcast. Very cool. Check them out. I'll throw a link up there. But this week, we're just talking about interesting Bigfoot stories. And when I met you just a few days ago, you had a chewed up trail cam, and I wanted to hear that story of what happened to that trail cam.
So we have in our research area down in Arkansas, the research area is, we call it Ground Zero. And this area is the best way I can describe it. And the first time I went there, first time my partners took me there, I told them, I was like, this area is just charged. And I call it the Amazon of America. It's woods that are so thick that you could walk 5 feet in there and just completely disappear. Now, the areas where we have the game cams are not areas that are like right off a little trail or something. These are areas that you have to really machete your way back through, and it's going through thick brush and thick foliage, and there's rattlesnakes and copperheads everywhere. So it's a tough area, but those woods are so thick, anything could be hiding back in there. Now, we have game cameras posted in various places, but as you know, the Bigfoot are creative, so you as a researcher have to be creative as well. So we have cameras hidden in brush piles. We've got them on trees. We've got them in trees. In fact, in our opening theme for our podcast, our opening intro video, you'll see a clip of my partner, William Lunsford, taking one of the game cams out of a tree. And yeah, we've got them all over the place. We've got them we've got them on the trees, in the brush piles, trying to catch different angles. So we had a game camera that was up pretty high. And then one evening, a creature, and we're 99.99% sure that it was a Sasquatch that did this because, obviously me being from Alaska, I'm tuned in on any type of bear activity that might be in the area as far as tracks and scat. And while bears do wander through there on occasion, we don't believe that the creature that did the damage to this game cam was a bear. So what had happened is this game camera was literally torn off the tree, and it was bit into strategically on the lens.
I saw that. Yeah.
So the puncture point is specifically the lens and underneath, and then the game camera was thrown for a number of yards. So that is what happened with the game camera.
That is so interesting because Alex Petikoff has a theory he told me about, that they are very aware of what game cams are, and so they typically spot them, and it's very difficult to get images on game cams because of that. So what other kinds of experiences did you guys have there in that area in Arkansas?
So again, this area, Ground Zero, and my research partners, William Lunsford and Stephen Hill, down there, have really centralized the research of the team in that area, and there are just tracks all over the place. And the first time I was down there, I was shocked that we spent every day we were going out in those woods, every day and almost every night, mainly in Ground Zero, but also a couple areas around there. Now, this research area, while I won't give the exact location, I can tell you it's not that far from Fouke, Arkansas. And for Bigfoot aficionados, obviously, when you hear Fouke, you hear about the legend of Boggy Creek. And in fact, we had Keith Crabtree, one of the guy who played the actual monster in the Legend of Boggy Creek, on one of our podcasts a few months ago.
Nice.
But this area, not only have we found all kinds of tracks of all different sizes, and heard vocalizations from screams to the whoops. It's just so much activity going on in those areas. But we've actually caught glimpses, or my partners have caught glimpses of juvenile Sasquatch babies that are being carried on shoulders. And so that's another fascinating thing about that area. I heard my first Sasquatch scream there, and I talked a little bit about it at the museum. And one of the things I didn't share in that story was that while we were out in that section of forest and ground zero, and we heard the loud scream from another section, when we got back to the vehicle where we had parked on this little tiny dirt road, when we got back there, a rock had been placed in the middle of the road that wasn't there before. So we heard the scream, but also we found this rock, and it would have been the rock we would have had to drive over it or see it, but it was actually placed there strategically. For what reason, we don't know. But the scream, I can just describe it as, it was so loud that you could feel it. And it was in a different section of the forest. It didn't sound like aggressive, like we're coming to get you, that type of aggressive. It more sounded like an I'm here. That's the best way I can compare it to. But it, like, I've heard people who've heard the screams describe it, you feel it. It's that loud and it's that shaking. But it was something, it was a moment I'll never forget. In fact, I believe we have a video posted of right when we got back into the vehicle, and us, me and William Lunsford, discussing the scream. But it was quite earth shaking. Definitely something I will never forget.
I love it. All right. Well, thanks for the story, and we will have you on more episodes.
Thanks, Chuke, and as always, great to see you, and you have a fantastic channel, so keep it up.
All right. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. I am with Rob Roy.
Hey!
At the Bigfoot Art Gallery.
Here we are.
Palmer, Alaska. Check out his Facebook page. You could order one of his prints.
Yeah. Order prints, look at the Bigfoot art, make a comment.
So we had
to hear from everybody.
Yeah, and we had a good time at the Anchorage Museum. That was a blast.
That was a good time, yeah. What a great venue.
Yeah, Trail Tales.
I would love to do that again.
Absolutely. Telling Bigfoot stories.
The hard part is that 7 minutes. You got 7 minutes and okay, I gotta really back off a little bit. But,
yeah.
But boy, usually by 7 minutes, I'm just getting into the story.
Yeah.
But
it was cool. We had Beans there. We met a new guy with the Alaska, I got his sticker right here. The Wilderness Research, Cryptid Wilderness Research guy.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting.
Hopefully I'll be on his podcast too.
Yeah, he's in Alaska here.
Yeah, some interesting stories to swap with him. The pictures were cool he sent.
Absolutely.
We won't talk about that. We'll save that for another.
Right.
Maybe the podcast. Or.
Speaking of stories, though, you had an interesting one that I really liked. Let's hear the news story.
Well, from time to time, of course, I have customers coming in here, and I get to hear a lot of stories, a lot of Bigfoot stories and other worldly stories. Mm-hmm. Lots of characters come in, but every once in a while, a person comes in and tells a story, that with all the hoaxing and there's so much Bigfoot content out there, you get a little tired of it or burned out. I don't even look at it sometimes because it's always disappointing. But every once in a while, you get into that mode where you're just kind of burned out about Bigfoot, and then you hear a story. Somebody tells you a story, and it just draws you right back into it. That's just too incredible. So this was kind of one of those stories. So it kind of goes like this. Customer came in, the Colony Days parade right here in Palmer's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a fun little local parade. lots of fun things in the parade. And so anyway, this customer was with her elderly mother. I believe she was in her 90s.
Oh, wow.
She's in her 90s. She's got dementia. But they're enjoying this parade and watching all these crazy floats and cars drive by. This truck drives by in the parade, this little float, and this truck is absolutely plastered with stickers. And of course, one of the stickers is the Bigfoot.
Yes.
And, the typical silhouette.
Yeah.
And her mom says, they really do walk like that. And she looked and said, what? She pointed at the Bigfoot stick. She said, the sticker there. She said, oh. She said, the Bigfoot? Yeah. She said, they really do walk like that with their hands cupped when they walk.
Interesting.
This is coming from a 90-year-old woman with dementia.
Right.
And her daughter's never heard this before. It's like, what? She says, yeah, my brother and dad used to feed him on the farm.
Wow.
Like corn and stuff. They used to come in and they used to feed him corn and leave things on the porch for him.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Wow.
And like she said, the daughter said, if you would ask her about that, she wouldn't know, what you're talking about, or the dementia thing.
Right.
But it was that image she saw that triggered that
memory,
and she just spit it out like it was nothing. And
wow.
daughter's never heard that before. She's just blown away. So anyway, I'm grateful that people share me these kind of stories.
Yeah.
So those are what keeps me going.
Absolutely. And what I like about that story is typically with dementia, it's their short-term memory that's completely shot.
Yeah.
And so they can't remember having breakfast 5 minutes ago.
Sure.
A lot of times they won't remember some family members, but some they will.
Yeah.
But past memories are usually very clear.
Yeah.
And they'll have moments of clarity too.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
But to have that and to say they really want the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she's 90, so we're talking when she was a girl growing up,
Probably
apparently
out
on this
of state.
property.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 30s,
Yeah.
40s. So that's pre-Patterson, that's pre the hype, that's pre all that.
Right.
So interesting, just a really interesting story. So that was a good one.
And that does reignite my hope too.
Yeah, I know. Now I have hope again, please.
Yeah.
So, another interesting story I had was kind of funny. All within a 3-week span, I had a couple different customers come in that were deaf,
Okay.
and both had experiences.
Right.
And I actually got video of this because it was really interesting. I've never seen anyone do this, any Bigfoot show.
Right.
Maybe it'll be a thing. But the interpreter, I would speak to the interpreter, who was also kind of partly deaf. He had, but he could hear me. I could ask him. He would hand signal to the other guy, and the other guy would answer. But anyway, I basically interviewed him, but asked this deaf guy questions. He told me he grew up on a farm, and his grandma, and they had him on the farm. And the grandma used to talk about him. She saw one standing by their fence once.
Oh boy.
And again, this family farm has been in their family for generations. So grandma's pretty old. I think she's passed away now. But again, another interesting story how a family grew up with these things around.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, by the way, yeah, those things are around
And they were
by elderly people. And we all get, the older we get, it's like, I don't care what you think, I'll tell you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's great to hear these elderlies come up with this information, this content we've not. And I find it fascinating when it's pre-Patterson too.
Right.
It's just a little more legitimacy to the story.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And after that, another couple came in, and they were deaf. And this guy ended up being a big Bigfoot fan, and we actually were writing down on paper and communicating that way.
Very cool.
But it's interesting. It was really interesting. Kind of a funny moment, actually.
Yeah.
But God bless them. They came in and they were like, yeah, writing down stuff, wow. So anyway, yeah, I've not seen a deaf person be interviewed by any. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Good stories.
Be an upcoming episode.
Could be.
All right. Be sure to check out the Bigfoot Art Gallery on Facebook.